Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasami. So today is already nearly a week of your retreat. And it depends upon, I guess, people's experience and people's interest. Because having an opportunity for retreats, we have lots of time to use, you can say, especially for what we call formal practice. And there's various ways we can use it. In one of the Buddha's teachings, he mentioned, the variety of different meditations which are useful for people, helpful for different, experiences we have and temperaments of people. The kind of general one, the most general one, I guess you could say, or simplest one, is one that one develops. The particular, developed the meditation on mindfulness of breathing in order to deal with discursive thoughts. One develops meditation on the so-called asubha, the unattractive aspects of the body, to help to deal with lust. One develops metta bhavana to deal with anger. And one develops the meditation on impermanence to help to see through the illusion of I am, of conceit. Now sometimes maybe on a retreat we have our own particular theme to work on. Other times it's helpful to maybe relate to whatever is prominent in our experience. For example, if we are facing some a lot of aversion, for example, a lot of aversion or anger or something, then maybe it is helpful to remember this particular teaching of the Buddha and, what can help me to deal with this aversion, rather than just be struggling with it or lost in it, is maybe to actually develop a meditation theme which is helpful to deal with it, like metta bhavana. Other times these particular things might seem a little bit forced. They don't seem so relevant to us, but sometimes it can be helpful when we have an opportunity like this to devote to meditation practice, formal exercises too. Make a conscious effort to develop some of these themes. And particularly, the meditation on developing awareness of breathing, anapanasati. On one level, it's helpful to be able to have a good foundation in having a point of reference like the breathing to help stabilize the mind, to calm the mind, to sharpen the mind, sharpen the attentiveness. But as we all know that calm mind is only part of the Buddha's teaching. Buddha talked about calm and insight meditation. And there are some teachers who say, all you have to do is calm the mind and insight arises by itself. However, it's not what the Buddha said. The Buddha talked about calm and insight, these two things specifically. He didn't just say calm and hope for the best, cross your fingers and hope for nibbana. Maybe you say cross your toes rather than cross your legs and hope for nibbana. But to actually he gave some exercises in how to develop insight meditation. On one hand, I remember when I was at one meditation center in Thailand years ago, and it was called they called it the Insight Meditation Monastery, based upon the Mahasi Sayadaw technique. And so I just said, well, why do you need to do insight? It's just developing calm mind. I thought I had a lot of insights. And the teacher said, well, yeah, you get some, as your mind calms down, you can see things more clearly. However, calm meditation still is based upon the belief in a self. There's somebody still meditating, somebody making the mind calm. So it's still, as you say, we would say, in the worldly realm. Even though you have insights, you see some of your thought patterns more clearly, and you see the nature of memory arising, thoughts arising, memories arising and things, but it's still within the realm of what we call the Lokiya Dhamma, still the worldly Dhammas. And he said, basically, you have to make a real effort for insight. Insight meditation, in its truest form, is the insight into impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. Well, he said, yourself doesn't want to see that. Yourself wants to see permanence, happiness, and self all the time, you see. That's called the Lokiya Dhammas, the worldly understanding. And in order to break through that fundamental delusion, one needs to make an effort in insight meditation. That is, applying your calm mind, your focused attention to particular themes. For example, in the foundations of mindfulness, developing awareness with regard to the body. Normally, we look at the body and we just, you're looking at it, you're understanding it, you're perceiving it through a self-view all the time. Even you think, oh yes, this body, yes, it get old and get sick and die, but it's maybe it's your body getting old and sick and dying. Yeah, ouch. And we say, well, it's not me. I'm somebody else. I'm the knower of all this. I'm above all this stuff. I'm the knower. I'm what knows. And this body is just this thing I hang on to once in a while, or got to put up with, but but if you develop this, make an effort to develop the awareness of body, depends on, there's 5 different exercises, but you bring awareness to the activity of the body, and then sometimes you may see through that illusion. Most of the time I'm walking, most of the time I'm breathing, most of the time I'm talking, whatever, but maybe occasionally there just is this body, empty body there. Nobody owning it, nobody home to own it. Sometimes, if you do the exercises correctly, the Buddha said, see the body in the body. Not see the body in myself. See myself in the body, but see the body in the body. So you just see the body as the body itself. Just this particular combination of 4 elements, 32 parts. And particularly when we develop some degree of calmness of mind, we can maybe sometimes step outside that conditioning, that particular self-referencing, that self-affirming conditioning. Just the body there, rather than all the other, especially the elaborations we put onto it. You start thinking about it, and then, thinking comes from yourself. So we think about the body. We think about the body being impermanent or not self. I'm thinking about not self. So you're still stuck with self again, ultimately. Even though intellectually you think the right way, but, can you say emotionally or in a kind of fundamental, deeper level of attitude, we still refer to self. The self with no self. But still stuck with self again. But in developing awareness with regard to these particular themes the Buddha pointed out, if you do it, in the right way and with support of calmness of mind, focused attention, sometimes the mind does break through those particular limited perceptions, that self-referencing perception. And of course, the Buddha gave, a huge range of different meditation exercises. So, it would be a little bit of it's a very good opportunity to try to develop some of them. And maybe some of them are more relevant to us. And also some of them maybe have more relevance to our particular temperament. They say, for example, that, people who have a lot of aversion, if they try and develop the metta bhavana, it's like it's in a way it's counter to their own particular self-referencing. Instead of seeing everything in a negative light, for example, which is aversion, they can begin to become more receptive and open to well-being and the positive side of the perspective. And of course, if one has a very strong, character tendency towards aversion, then in order to be able to develop this meditation, one has to make some fundamental changes. One's whole perception and whole way of relating to reality needs to change in order for it to be effective. So in a way it is what we call, we say meditation as Buddha's teaching, meditation, but the Pali word bhavana literally means mental development, developing certain capacities of mind. Unfortunately, meditation is a bit of a vague term, and people can, I guess, put their own definition to it. Meditation, just sit there blissing out, more like sitting there kind of knee crunching maybe, or just enduring your babbling mind or your fatigue or something or other, and just enduring the discomforts. But if you see it in terms of mental development, developing certain mental skills, then maybe it gives you a more positive attitude, not just enduring difficulties and the limitations of the body, but using the time to develop skillful states of mind. And sometimes, just like mental development, like any development, it requires some effort, and maybe some consistency and some persistence. And I remember years ago when I was on one of my wandering trips in Thailand, up in North Thailand, and I ended up in it was very peaceful monastery, way up in the mountains somewhere. Well, not really high in the mountains, it was sort of, but it was quite remote. And there was just one other monk living there, the abbot of this place, and a couple of nuns, I think, doing the cooking, because the monastery depended upon this very small and poor village of hill tribe people. So even though every morning we went almost round, it wasn't very far, a kilometer or so, to this little village, 5 houses or something. We only got, a little handful of rice from each place. That was about it. So we had to depend upon the nuns to do the cooking for us. But the place was very peaceful. Nothing very dramatic, no great scenery or anything, but so I was doing walking and sitting there, and then I thought, well, it's not much going on. It's not like I'm having to exert myself for difficult walking meditation or something, or not very spectacular, not great scenery. So my meditation, what will I do? And I thought of the 5 khandhas, the 5 groups of grasping. I never did know much about them before. I didn't think about them too much. But I remember what they were. Oh yes, body, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Oh yeah. So then I just decided to try to experience them. It's one thing to have them in your mind, to know what they are intellectually, but okay, what's the body? And try to be more experiential, have a more experiential knowledge of them, or experience them more directly. So I had quite a bit of time. You say the alms round was not very tiring or not very far, and there was nothing going on there. The abbot was always busy building something, which finally drove me out because it was too noisy. But no morning chanting, no evening chanting, nothing going on really. So I had a lot of time to do sitting and walking. So I just began to reflect upon these 5 khandha. Body, feelings, perception, and mental activities, consciousness. And I went through them again and again and again. And one day, there's just 5 khandhas and nobody there. just for a brief moment. And I realized that when you're, as the Buddha recommended, when you just can observe those particular experiences, they are. We all have body, feelings, perception, mental activities, consciousness. These are like the kind of ultimate bedrock of our being. Whereas if you, maybe look at some of your, aware of some of your memories or your thoughts, and then, you can kind of get caught up with them, or they become a big story or something, but just perception, just perception. And in the Thai language, perception, sanya, is memory. It's how they translate it as memory. Of course, in English we say perception, which is, if we understand it, it does include memory, but it's not just memories. So instead of, being aware of my memories, it was just, there's sanya, perception. And just go back to the very, very basic mental processes going on, rather than my memories. And be able to do that, if you can do that, more ideally with some degree of calmness of mind, well, you can kind of disidentify with them. It's not my memories. If you have your own personal memory of something, like I just had the memory of being in Thailand, up in the mountains in Chiang Mai. Well, so I can go off with it. Oh yes, like this and like that, or I can just say, it's only a perception. End of story. Even though sometimes I can elaborate on the story, but or I can elaborate on just the perception, but it's just a perception. And then you can see it in this context then. It just happens. It's not mine anymore. Okay, there is an element of mindness to it that happened in this mind, but just a perception. Just happened because there's a body-mind at this place at that time. That's all. But you don't take it so personally then. No, just perception. Okay. And sometimes, the story ends. Other times, okay, maybe there's a little bit of elaboration to it, but you just keep going back to perception, just the perception, just the perception. It's not yours. It's just happened because of body, mind, and time and place, and endless. So, so you can disidentify with it. It's not your particular special problem. It just happens to this body-mind, that's all. By being able to go back to some of these kind of very basic, you can say fundamental experiences, helps us to disidentify with them. When normally, most of us, we're being aware of our thinking or memories or whatever, and then it goes the other way. There's a self-referencing and a self-affirmation, and sometimes we can really get caught up with it. Oh yes, my memory. Now how to get rid of my memory? That's a disturbing memory. I want to get rid of that memory now. But if you just recognize it's just a perception, you don't have to get rid of it. But just see it in the right context, and that's it. End of story. You don't need to get rid of your memories, get rid of your disturbing states of mind. Just notice, oh, there's aversion. Ah, interesting. If you can really just observe it, just be mindful of just aversion, what's the problem? It's just a state of mind. Huh? Easier said than done, mind you. Yeah. However, if your mind does have some degree of calmness to it, there's some stability, does have some sharp focus to it, then you can just observe, oh, there is aversion. Just a state of mind. It arises, it passes away. It arises and passes away. And sometimes it's like just suddenly stepping back. Oh, state of mind. Nobody there to own it. Nobody there to claim it. Nobody there to play with it. Just a state of mind. It happens, Greed, aversion, delusion, arises and passes away, arises and passes away. I don't know if I should mention this right now, but, one time, one of Ajahn Chah's talks he gave, I recorded his talk. I didn't quite appreciate the profundity of it at the time, but then when I went to visit one of my monk friends, who was living up in Chiang Rai, I brought the tape with me, because he'd been living away from Wat Pah Pong for a while, so he hadn't heard any talks of Ajahn Chah. So I brought this tape with me, and so we were listening to it one time in his kuti, and suddenly we both kind of took a deep breath. Did Ajahn Chah say that? Play it back again. Play it back. I won't tell. No. What did he say? Everybody's woken up now. Well, maybe I have to qualify it and say this is the view from the meditative point of view, not the intellectual. You see. So Ajahn Chah, he said one time in this talk, he said, the Nukbrat, the scholars, Nukbrat. Huh? And the scholars say, the Arahant doesn't have any greed, aversion, delusion. He says, but I think they do. But there's nobody there to own it. It just it just arises and passes away. Greed arises and they're aware of it. Aha, I see you, Mara. And it passes away. Aversion arises and, aha, I see you. Passes away. So you can say, maybe I'm elaborating too much, but if there's nobody there to own the greed, aversion, delusion, it's as if he doesn't have it, right? He doesn't have it because he doesn't own it. So they're just states of mind arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And you can say maybe it's, some of it is just vipaka. It's just the results of previous actions, you see, kama vipaka. They see some, particular scene, and there is the result of their previous, self-referencing of it. Aversion arises. Unpleasant situation. When they recall, being sick or something. There's aversion there, but they don't make a big issue of it. State of mind arises. It's aversion. Yeah. Don't grab hold of it. Don't identify with it. Just recognize state of mind, and it passes away. Of course, some people would, trigger when they have something like aversion arising. Sometimes it just triggers off a whole avalanche of aversion, associative thought, and aversion, and you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm miserable." It's just a whole train of associated aversion thoughts or something. And you recognize, there it is. End of story. So if there's nobody, there's no identifying with it, then it's as if it doesn't. They don't have it. It's not theirs. They don't own it. In other words. So we better be careful when you quote that Ajahn saying, because of if he thinks that arahants have greed, aversion, delusion, he's obviously not an arahant, huh? But if from the point of view of the meditator's point of view, you have a different perspective. And actually, myself and my monk friend, we both, that was really kind of enlightening, Because for most people, they say, I have greed, aversion, delusion. I have to get rid of it. Yeah, there's I again. I got to get rid of my aversion. Good luck. I get rid of my aversion. Here I am identifying with it and then trying to get rid of it and trying to solve it. But if you're just aware of it as a state of mind, what's the problem? It arises, passes away, arises and passes away, just like everything. But of course, developing the meditation exercises is more than just having the theory about it. It's trying to put that, if you like, that theory into the practice, into direct experience, that becomes something that we can relate to directly. We experience that, and we understand the process from our own direct experience and not just the theory of it. And sometimes it does require maybe some continuity in the practice. I mean, there's something to be said for, just having meditation practices as part of your daily life. Yeah. But sometimes it requires, to really develop, is the word mental, really develop mentally these particular attitudes or these qualities. It requires some continuity, because they tend to go against the grain of our usual way of thinking. As the Buddha said, his teaching goes against the flow, against the stream of craving. So while we can sometimes have moments of calmness or clarity, but sometimes it's like 2 steps forward, 1 back, because we go back to our old habits very easily again. The old way the mind is working in its usual deluded way of self-referencing all the time, and get moments of clarity and then lose it. But having some continuity in the practice, an opportunity for a continuity of meditation exercises, allows us to strengthen those mental development, give it some strength, some continuity, some foundation to it. And then maybe we can change our attitude in everyday life too. Sometimes like insight meditation, sometimes it's been sort of presented as just having this great insight, kind of earth-shattering insight, But, I've met people who, they have had some degree of insight maybe, but unless one's able to consolidate it or to make it, to integrate it into one's life, it just becomes a memory then. We have our insight meditation scrapbook. Back in 2018 I had that insight, and 2017 I had that insight, and but I'm just as deluded as before, but but I had insight somewhere, Maybe it'll bear fruit just before I die and I get enlightened. I'll be Sotapanna before I die. But I remember another one of Ajahn Chah's teachings was, he said, if you live a life with energy and perseverance and developing meditation and morality and generosity, and he says, well, if you develop that in your lifetime, well, you should be a Sotapanna, a stream enterer at the end of your life. You're changing your whole attitude, changing your fundamental attitudes, and especially through a lifetime, it should bear results, should give fruit. When some people just think, I can just be my old self and then get enlightened too, and just continue with my old self, and enlightenment too. But generally, the stream entry, it is a fundamental change, fundamental shift in one's way of being in the world. When one has the insight deep enough, especially of anatta, or one recognizes it, when it begins to relate to reality then from a less selfish point of view. When it's seen through that fundamental delusion. Yes, it's just thoughts. Yes, it's just perceptions. Yes, it's just body. There's nobody there. But of course, to make that a part of our way of being, it requires usually some degree of deep insight. And this is supported by the calmness of meditation, the calm mind. The calm mind, focused mind is able to see more deeply and not just be distracted by superficial discursive thoughts and interpretations, but to be able to see directly. It's very penetrating insight. So we have the opportunity to spend some time to devote to the formal exercises, and with calm and insight, for example, it really is dependent upon one's own experience. For some people, maybe they need to spend quite a bit of time developing calm meditation because their mind is very discursive or very distracted. But always to keep in mind that there is these two aspects to it: calm, but insight too. So, and of course, it's always a bit of a discussion how much calm to develop. But I prefer Ajahn Chah's explanation: just calm enough, whatever that is. Calm enough for insight. So you need to know yourself how much calm is necessary, without getting overdoing it, not kind of just getting blissed out, over calming. And all you can observe is just calm, which is, it has its benefits, but it's also, you can say, maybe, not using the right opportunity for developing insight as well. And we're just overdoing it on the calm. So I mean, it's not too bad if you overdo it on calm. They say if you develop calm meditation, it depends on the degree of calm, but then next lifetime you get reborn in the heavenly realm, see. Yeah. But it's still impermanent. Nice, but impermanent. It's only insight meditation which can free you completely. So, and then the other side of it is, if there isn't enough calm, then you try to develop insight meditation, more clear seeing of, say, the 5 groups of grasping: body, feelings, perception, states of mental activity, consciousness. If the mind isn't calm enough, then you can't develop the direct seeing of the experience. One just thinks about it. It's caught in thinking about, interpreting, conceptualizing about these particular themes, conceptualizing about the body rather than actually seeing it directly. Where the calm mind sees through, it's calming the conceptualizing, the discursive thinking, to be able to see more directly, see clearly. Vipassanas, clear seeing. So one needs to experiment for oneself. One needs to decide for oneself how much the mind is calm enough. Too much calm, not enough calm. And the danger with calm is, of course, it can be quite addictive. Just sit there and bliss out. But it's only, it's blissing out, but not blissing in through insight. So just taking a nice holiday, But we still have to deal with old age, sickness, and death, so you can't bliss out completely from that. So during the retreat time, it's up to each one of us to, be able to, first of all, experience the different states of mind and recognize what the context is. What's the degree of calm? Is the calmness of mind, is it stabilized, or is it just temporary? Is it calm enough for clear seeing? And if the mind does seem to be calm enough, well, maybe this is a good opportunity then to further development of insight through some of the other exercises the Buddha gave, a huge range of exercises. In the mindfulness, the foundations of mindfulness itself, there's, 20 different exercises or something. And maybe it's worth, at least studying about them and maybe trying them out to a certain degree. See what works for you. Some of them may be more relevant to you at certain times. Some maybe they're just too, you can't really connect with them at all. Doesn't matter. What's more important is what's relevant, what's happening for you right now in this time. So we have this opportunity to develop the practices today, these days, and have our own experience and see for ourselves. We become our own teacher, as it were. Learning to explore the mind. Explore these, first of all, explore the mind as it is, and hopefully we have the benefit, we're very fortunate to have the benefit of the Buddhist template available to us. The Buddha was the master of the mind. Not only the mind, but seeing liberation through it. So we can take guidance from his teachings to lead us in that direction, in the skillful direction. And then we have the experience for ourselves and become the little Buddha, anyway. So I'll leave that for your reflection this evening.
Namayang Dhamma Kataya Sadhu Karang Dhamma Say Sadhu, 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 anumodha. All together? Okay. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅgham